Hey everybody, it's Tripl-L, and now it's time to talk about Goblin Slayer. This time specifically, we're going to be talking about some criticisms that were had against episode 1 of the Goblin Slayer anime. My idea with this video is that I honestly just want to talk about the criticisms, and I want to point some stuff out and just have it so people can understand some things that happened with episode 1 and maybe why things went down the way they did. For those that don't know though, the criticisms that I'm going to be focusing on is specifically one that had to do with the party of adventurers that was featured in episode 1. One of the common criticisms is just they were not that great, you know, they were not very sympathetic. Some people saying and comparing it to other anime that have done a similar thing, some saying that hey, like the Sword Art Online people, that first party of Sword Art Online that got wiped out were even done better. The joke of that criticism being, oh, Sword Art's so bad that even Sword Art did this better. And what I want to do with this video is honestly just clarify some things. So we'll go through that, and then by the end we'll also talk about why the criticisms are valid, but doing that while also looking at just the nature of the story, because the nature of the story is what kind of makes it harder to make those criticisms work. So here's what we got to keep in mind as we go into this. First, the Goblin Slayer light novel, that first volume, reads like a collection of short stories with, from my recollection, 7 to 8 short stories, maybe 9 to 10 if you want to count the interlude chapters, which were really short. Point is, most of the chapters and the content within the chapters are one-off and to the point. Another thing, the first episode is only 1 chapter in the light novel and 2 chapters in the manga. What's more, all 3 mediums barely focus on the trouble characters, i.e. that little party of adventurers. Although on that point, the light novel and the manga do them more justice. The point of this one is that this is not an anime unique problem. This is prevalent across all 3 mediums. The overall idea that you should have forming is that those beginning characters don't matter. If you form an attachment to those characters, then great. The anime is not going to be helping you with that, but if you did, great. But that is not what they are designed for. Heck, the first chapter of the light novel is titled The Fate of Some Adventurers. The moment you read that, you know there's going to be trouble. That sounds ominous. I'm actually surprised 1 person survived that, honestly. Actually, 2 people survived. I'm very surprised 2 people survived. Anyway, the first volume is, yes, about killing goblins, but it's also significantly about why Goblin Slayer kills goblins and how people see the Goblin Slayer who is going around just killing goblins. The problem characters are ultimately not really characters, and I think most people can agree with that, because the basis of the criticism is that you couldn't really grow fond of them. Instead, those problem characters are scapegoats, they're plot devices. They are specifically there to establish how this world works in regards to goblins. Here's the thing, the character Goblin Slayer is really weird. That first episode is specifically there to answer a question that people have throughout the series. Why does Goblin Slayer only kill goblins every day he can? A good part of the answer is already there. Here's what that episode should have told you in regards to the monsters that everyone laughs at. Goblins and how they are dealt with. They are clever, they are capable of ambush by using little tricks, they are exceedingly vicious and grotesque, they are capable of using poisons and tools, they are capable of individualizing and growing, they are capable of using magic, they are capable of elaborate deception. They should not be underestimated. There are also 2 more points, but these points don't really manifest till later, and one of the 2 points is also kind of important for the whole story of Goblin Slayer, and those are, do not show goblins mercy and you need luck. The luck is a really big one, but I'm not sure how the anime is going to show that aspect of it, but luck's a big thing. Anyway, those facts are what those characters were there to establish. The graphic violence just helps in getting the consequences of being ignorant to those facts into the reader's minds, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty sure the author had fun describing some of that massacre. But anyway, you don't need an emotional connection to those characters to understand those basic facts. Although an emotional connection would be nice just in terms of the entertainment of it. But anyway, by the time that you see that, when you're asked why the Goblin Slayer only kills goblins, you will point to the events of episode 1 as a pretty good start to answer those questions. Mind you, it's not a complete answer, but it should get you started. Now mind you, goblins are still pathetic. It's part of why higher adventurers choose to deal with demons and other stuff like manticores and dragons and stuff instead. But the story itself makes fun of the goblin obsession. Heck, you have little interviews with random characters talking about how they just swept a bunch of goblins like it was nothing. At one point in the first volume, there's even a moment where people are celebrating celebrating over a demon lord dying, and you know what Goblin Slayer says? There's still goblins around and he has to kill them. That's pretty much what he says, even after everyone's just having a nice time with a demon lord dead. And even in the first episode, Priest Girl, she just narrates that, hey, this happens to some adventurers. Some adventurers succeed, some adventurers fail. That's just kind of how the world works. Now, there was also a joke to those little characters, and legitimately, it's a definite con to the anime, because in the manga they were given a little bit more. The manga went further by giving them flashbacks that give them the feel of a stereotypical JRPG player character. The joke being, oh look, these guys have the qualities of a standard video game hero, they just got wiped, haha, oh so funny. Look, it was a small attempt at a subversion of expectations based on pre-established character archetypes. That's all it was. That was the joke. It was just to have these people that look like they should be main characters get wiped out. If you were to sit down and read that first chapter of the Goblin Slayer light novel, you would realize they don't matter. Those characters will not shape Goblin Slayer in any way. In the very same way that Priest Girl narrated it at the end, they are just going to be forgotten as just another number in the death count. In the same way that the people of that world are going to forget about them, the viewers are going to forget about them. Now, mind you, I said it earlier in the video that we were going to talk about the criticisms and whether or not they were valid, and it's like, to some degree, yeah, they are valid, because the ultimate criticism here is that people wanted to get invested in these characters, and you could definitely say like, well, I think he should have written those characters to be more attractive so that I could feel bad about it. And I really shouldn't be saying he, I should be saying the anime or them for the anime, because that's where the problem is. The criticism could easily become, well, the manga went this far and gave this material, why didn't the anime do it? The anime should have done it, especially if you argue for the point of entertainment or getting people invested in the series so they want to continue on. Maybe people could say, well, might as well at least try to get people more invested in these characters, even if they're going to die, just to ramp up the entertainment value. And that's a very fair criticism. Heck, you could take a step back and look at the whole story, take into consideration the nature of the book, the fact that it's 14 chapters long with rather disjointed stories, try and figure out, well, would this have been an appropriate use of time to spend time with these characters? You could even pick bigger criticisms with the nature of the book and how that impacts the storytelling. For instance, towards the end of the book, there's a moment where people are kind of trying to be rallied around Goblin Slayer, and they are talking about how bad it would feel if they didn't get to see Goblin Slayer anymore. And at that point in the book, you could argue, well, are readers invested enough to be sympathetic towards that plight if they have not spent that much time with Goblin Slayer? You know, those are all worthwhile criticisms. It's just that for this first episode, the criticism of these characters are not developed enough doesn't really work when you consider that for the rest of the story, the characters that are getting fleshed out are the ones who are around Goblin Slayer specifically. Everyone else is just kind of on the periphery. Only the people that observe Goblin Slayer get any kind of attention. I don't think that criticism would have been had if you had just started reading a light novel, but for different reasons than just, oh, there was more material about those characters in the light novel, and more because you would have realized how insignificant they were in the grand scheme of things. Ultimately, it's just something to keep in mind from the perspective of a first anime episode. In a very standalone environment, yeah, you know, that criticism makes a lot more sense, but when you see the wider context of the story, it just kind of falls apart, because you're criticizing about something that it was never going to be, kind of thing, right? Still, people have a right to be entertained, or, you know, to not be entertained by something, and ultimately, if you don't like that, it might just mean that Goblin Slayer is not the type of show for you. If you pick the fundamental problem that minor characters should get more attention, then, yeah, you're better off just going somewhere else, or at least waiting to see if the other side characters that show up are worth your time. The point is, those adventurers at the beginning, they don't matter, they never matter, they're going to be forgotten by the world and by the readers. The point wasn't to feel bad about them, the point was to see how bad goblins are in this world. And with that, I'm pretty much done. Everyone, thanks for watching. Until next time, I hope you have a great day, and of course, let me know what you think of this down below, if you agree or disagree, or you have some points to add. Till next time.